libertà nella creatività delle persone che le fanno. Lei crede che potrebbe fare la stessa cosa utilizzando più soldi, quindi con un budget più alto, o questi film si possono fare, così audaci si possono fare solo con un low budget? Cioè, avere più soldi cambierebbe il film o si potrebbe fare lo stesso film con più soldi?
Two different questions. So the first question is, I don't have enough clout. There are 5 people, or maybe 3 people, who can do super high budget films with the same creative control. Cameron, Spielberg, Michael Bay, that's about it. Like, they get to do what I'm doing for $200 million, but I certainly don't get to do that, and there are very few other people who can do that. So I think I guess that's answer number 1. Answer number 2 is, like I said before, I do believe that horror specifically benefits from a lower budget because the movies feel grittier and they feel more real and they focus on character and story and not effects, and those things make movies scarier. So I think having lower budgets is a benefit to us. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but okay.
Grazie. La mia domanda era sulla scrittura, cioè quando scrivete un soggetto, un concept per un film, partite dal basso aggiungendo cose o dall'alto tagliando?
When we write, is that what it's saying?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't write. I don't write. So James DeMonico wrote this, or James Wan wrote it to these. So I would be a terrible screenwriter. I would not be good at that. But the way that we look at material is usually we get a script and we read it and then we give notes. Is that your question?
Yeah, I was talking about people who write. I mean, when you get in touch with the script, what do? You cut things or you add things? You start from the bottom or you start from the
cut. Usually we get a script that's long and has too much in it that we can't afford. So we usually cut. We don't cut it ourselves. The deal with the director is, you get to do what you want to do, but you got to do it for $4 million. And then we say, if you do 10 of these 20 things, we'll get a budget to 4, and we let the director choose what he wants to do. And sometimes the director says, you know what, that's not the movie I want to make, I don't want to do that, but most of the time, they do.
Okay, thank you.
Se ci sono altre domande ne faccio un'altra io. È vero che lei non è nato appassionato di horror, ma a un certo punto ha scoperto che quando si trattava di produrre horror c'era una connessione particolare tra lei e il pubblico.
Yeah, it's totally true. When I was growing up, I was not like Eli Roth or Tarantino, who loved horror movies more than other movies. I just loved movies, and my first kind of exposure to scary movies was in college. I took a class in Hitchcock and saw every Hitchcock movie. He's definitely my favorite scary movie director for sure. But I started my career doing art house movies, mostly art house movies, mostly independent art house movies. And I was never, I still love movies early on in my career, but I was never very happy with my job. And I didn't figure out what satisfied my soul until we started this business model about 6 or 7 years ago.
Ho letto che all'inizio una delle sue sceneggiature che ebbe successo era appoggiata da Steve Martin, che era un amico di famiglia. Allora ci racconta un attimo questo episodio e come lei conoscesse Steve Martin?
Yes, so I mentioned earlier that my dad was an art dealer, and Steve Martin is an art collector. And so my dad and Steve Martin, they still are actually quite good friends. When I was 20, right when I graduated college, my roommate in college was Noah Baumbach, who made Frances Ha and The Squid and the Whale. And his first movie was a movie that I produced called Kicking and Screaming. And when we were 22 or 23 years old, and Steve Martin was a friend of my dad's, but I never met Steve Martin. And I asked my dad to give Steve, I asked anyone who would listen to read this script, kicking and screaming. And one of the 500 people I asked, I said to my dad, can you give it to Steve Martin? And I never thought a thing about it. And like 6 months passed, and shockingly, Steve Martin actually read the script. And my dad said to call him, and like I said, I never met him, so I called him, and the phone was shaking like this in my hand. And I said, I'm glad you read my script. And he really liked it. And he wrote a letter saying how much he liked it, and even offering to invest a little bit of money in independent production. And I asked him on the phone, I had enough wits in my head to ask him on the phone if he would mind if we could show that letter to people. And he was happy for us. He said he really liked the script, and he was happy for us to do that. And so I thanked him. And this is before scripts were emailed. And I ripped off the cover page of the script, and I stuck a copy of that letter from Steve Martin on the script. And then I resent it to the 300 people we had sent it to, and that's actually how the movie got made. Then it suddenly got people's attention, and then we got the movie made. That's how it happened.
Poi Steve Martin è rientrato sul suo investimento. Il film è stato un successo.
We didn't take his money. I was too nervous to take his money. He was financed by Trimark, and the film was not a financial success, but it was a critical success. People liked it critically.
Eccoci. Tornando un attimo al progetto Gem e le Holograms, ho letto online che probabilmente mancheranno le Misfits nel film, ovvero le storiche nemiche di Gem e appunto le Holograms, per una questione di diritti. Cioè, è vero? Che problemi avete riscontrato? Grazie.
I may be wrong, by the way, but I don't think it was, that's news to me. I know that the Misfits aren't in it, but I don't think it's because of copyright. But you may know something I don't. Everyone in Italy knows more about Gem and the Holograms than anywhere else in the world. But as far as I know, the movie that John wrote is the movie that he wanted to write. I didn't know, I would have heard if there was rights that he wanted to get, because he would have called me and said, go get these rights for me. So I think they're not in it, but I don't think it was a rights issue. But again, I'm definitely saying I may be wrong, because you guys all know more about it than I do.
Premiere mondiale in Italia di Gem e le Holograms.
We'll have, are you kidding? We're going to have a premiere in every Italian city. We're going to do 10 premieres. It's Universal. I don't know. Universal's going to have the movie. They're going to release it with more theaters than Anarchy.
Allora, se non ci sono altre domande, ringraziamo. Ah, ne abbiamo una lì.
Buongiorno. Volevo sottoporre alla sua attenzione, ringraziando innanzitutto della sua presenza qui da noi in Italia. Non crede, al di là degli aspetti economici, del dio danaro che ne è la locomotiva di questo target di film, perché il mercato vuole questo e necessita di questo, non crede che il contenuto di questa dimensione, di questa tipologia di cinema abbia e nasconda una nefandezza assoluta, diseducativa e molto lontana dal tipo di educazione che dovrebbe essere, o come messaggio dovrebbe arrivare ai nostri giovani?
No, The Purge to me is about America's relationship to guns, which is totally awful. And every time there's a killing in the United States, our answer is more guns. So this movie this movie is about the fact that if we keep going in that direction, look where we could wind up. And the idea is that, like I said before, The Purge it's a great idea for a movie, but a terrible idea for society. So there's always the argument to be made that if you just, the mere act of showing violence is not good for kids, and I think it probably isn't, but there's no way to get around it, and we're trying to do it responsibly, and hopefully trying to start people talking in a different way. I don't think this movie is going to change gun control in America, believe me, but at least it would get people talking about it, some people, and maybe have a tiny, tiny effect, and hopefully a positive one. So that's my thought on that.
No, visto che siamo entrati in tema di etica, allora la dico. Invece l'impressione che ho avuto io vedendo specialmente il primo e il secondo Pure, cioè che il messaggio sia fortissimamente positivo, e questo per due motivi. Innanzitutto perché il finale in entrambi i film volge al bene sulla base di un atto di pietà, di perdono e di misericordia, che non è facile da trovare in un film di questo genere. Noi siamo abituati ai finali alla Carpenter, nihilistici, contro tutto e contro tutti, realmente anarchici, mentre Anarchia non è un film anarchico, perché c'è un eroe che è un Maverick all'americana, un senza patria, un Ronin, però che poi alla fine riesce a trovare il suo compimento, io credo, proprio in virtù, come nel primo film, di un atto di pietà, di perdono e di misericordia. Altrimenti il finale sarebbe stato completamente differente, quindi è un'interpretazione che io credo sia un messaggio positivo. Io sarei critico se avessi visto altro, però credo che ai nostri giovani non ne venga nulla di male da questo tipo di finali. Ne vorrebbe venire da altri film, da torture porn classici, da queste schifezze che a volte anche un po' estreme si vedono, ma non da questi due film. Questa è l'impressione che ho avuto. Non so se la condivide come produttore, chiaramente.
You have to come on tour with me to the rest of the city. We talked about that all the time when we made the movie, and it was very important that the hero of the movie doesn't kill to James. It was very, very important. And in the first movie, you know, the good people don't purge, and we had a suggestion from someone that that we should remember in the auction scene the old lady at the car when Frank scolds her and she walks away. Well, there were a lot of people who will remain unnamed, not with the studio, by the way, but there were a lot of people who who really pressured James to kill her in the parking garage, and he was adamant that as soon as you have the main character purge, the whole point of the movie is the movie's pointless.
That's
then
right.
It's just a revenge movie. It's just another Hollywood movie, and he really fought against that, and I did too. And I was glad he did. Anyway, I'm glad you understood it. That makes me very happy. That's where we should end on that. I'm very happy. No, we can do another. If anyone has another question, that's fine. I don't know.
C'era un...
No, non si può vedere il problema, ma se non ci sono altre domande, come suggerisce Jason, possiamo anche chiudere in bellezza.